First contact and initial conflict. The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning at SETI headquarters in California. Unlike the usual background radiation and stellar noise, this signal was unmistakably artificial, a repeating pattern of prime numbers followed by complex mathematical equations. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization didn't come with massive ships appearing over major cities, but through mathematics, the universal language. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her monitor, coffee forgotten in her hand as she processed what she was seeing. After 20 years of scanning the stars, they had finally found something. Her hands trembled as she began the verification protocols, sending the data through multiple filters and analysis programs. Each test confirmed what she already knew. This was no natural phenomenon. "Get me the director," she spoke into her phone, voice steady despite her racing heart. "We've got a Category 1 signal." Within hours, observatories across the globe had confirmed the signal's authenticity. Within days, a response had been carefully crafted and transmitted back into space. Within weeks, regular communication had been established with the alien civilization that called themselves the Xeraxians. The initial exchanges were cautious but promising. The Xeraxians shared knowledge of advanced physics, proving their technological superiority, while demonstrating their willingness to help humanity advance. But as Earth scientists began decoding more of their language and cultural references, troubling patterns emerged. In Xeraxian stellar cartography, Earth was marked with a warning symbol. Their xenobiologists classified humans as Deathworld specimens, creatures that had evolved on a planet so hostile that it should have been impossible for intelligent life to develop. Every aspect of human physiology terrified them. Our endurance, our ability to heal from injuries, our tolerance for environmental extremes, and most of all, our adaptability. The first diplomatic mission arrived 6 months after initial contact. The Xeraxian vessel, sleek and crystalline, settled into high Earth orbit. Their representatives, tall, elegant beings with iridescent skin and multiple pairs of arms, wore sealed environmental suits despite all assurances that Earth's atmosphere was safe for their species. Ambassador James Chen, Sarah's brother and the UN's chosen representative, stood in the sterile meeting chamber aboard the International Space Station, watching as the Xeraxian delegation maintained a careful distance. Their body language, alien as it was, screamed discomfort. "We must discuss quarantine protocols." The lead Xeraxian diplomat, whose name translated roughly to Symphony of Starlight, announced without preamble. "Your species presents an unprecedented threat to galactic stability." James kept his expression neutral, though his heart sank. "Threat? We've shown nothing but peaceful intentions since first contact." "Your peaceful intentions are irrelevant," Symphony of Starlight replied. "Your mere existence defies natural law. You are apex predators from a Class 12 Deathworld. Your bodies host billions of microorganisms that could devastate less robust ecosystems. Your ability to survive conditions that would kill most sentient species makes you potentially unstoppable if you ever turned hostile. So you want to imprison us on our own planet?" James asked, anger seeping into his voice despite his diplomatic training. "For the greater good of the galaxy," another Xeraxian added. "Until you can be properly contained." Back on Earth, Sarah received the diplomatic transcripts with growing horror. In the privacy of her office, she began analyzing everything the Xeraxians had shared about their technology, their biology, and their society. If they intended to cage humanity, they had made a crucial mistake. They had already given Earth scientists too much information. Warning bells began ringing across military installations worldwide as massive energy signatures appeared at the edge of the solar system. The Xeraxian quarantine fleet had arrived early, dozens of massive ships moving to blockade Earth. But humanity had no intention of accepting imprisonment quietly. In research facilities across the globe, scientists like Sarah worked feverishly to adapt and improve upon the technologies the Xeraxians had shared. In military bases, strategists studied everything known about Xeraxian biology and psychology, looking for weaknesses. And in diplomatic chambers, people like James tried desperately to build alliances with other alien species, many of whom viewed humans with the same fear as the Xeraxians. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The very traits that made humans terrifying to the galactic community were the traits that might save them: their resilience, their adaptability, and their absolute refusal to be caged. As the Xeraxian ships moved into position, humanity prepared for a fight that would determine not just their future, but their very right to exist freely among the stars. The traits that had helped them survive and thrive on their harsh homeworld would now be tested against the most advanced civilization in the known galaxy. The first shots weren't fired by either side. Instead, a small group of research vessels slipped past the blockade, carrying human scientists and diplomats to distant worlds. The Xeraxians had expected humanity to react with military force. They hadn't anticipated that their greatest weapons would be their minds and their ability to forge connections even with those who feared them. The stage was set for a conflict that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be human and what it truly meant to be civilized. As Sarah looked up at the night sky, now dotted with the artificial stars of the Xeraxian fleet, she couldn't help but smile. They thought humans were dangerous because they could survive almost anything. They were about to learn that humans were dangerous because they could achieve anything they set their minds to. The quarantine of Earth had begun, but it would not end the way the Xeraxians expected. Humanity's spirit could not be contained by ships or shields. It would spread across the galaxy, one connection, one innovation, one act of courage at a time. The human factor. While the Xeraxian quarantine fleet loomed overhead, humanity refused to sit idle. In a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Sarah Chen worked with a global team of scientists on what they called Project Prometheus, an ambitious plan to turn humanity's Deathworld advantages into technological breakthroughs. "Look at how they've designed their ships," Sarah explained to the assembled military leaders, pointing to holographic projections based on their observations. "Everything is optimized for beings that evolved in low-gravity, low-radiation environments. Their environmental systems are complex because they need perfect conditions to function. But we don't." The implications were clear. Human technology, developed on a harsh world, was inherently more robust. Where Xeraxian ships required perfect conditions, human vessels could operate in extremes. Where their weapons were precisely calibrated but fragile, human weapons were adaptable and resilient. General Maya Rodriguez, head of the newly formed Earth Defense Coalition, leaned forward. "How long until we can match their technological level?" "We don't need to match it," Sarah replied with a fierce grin. "We need to transcend it. They gave us the basics of their science thinking. We were too primitive to fully understand it. But they don't realize. Humans don't just understand technology. We improve it. We break it down, rebuild it, and make it better." In orbital shipyards, hidden from Xeraxian sensors by sophisticated cloaking technology, the first human warships took shape. They weren't beautiful like Xeraxian vessels. They were functional, sturdy, and built to take punishment. The first ship of the line, christened the EDS Resilient, embodied everything that made humanity different from their would-be jailers. Ambassador James Chen, meanwhile, had not returned to Earth after the failed diplomatic mission. Instead, he'd allowed himself to be taken to the Xeraxian homeworld as a diplomatic liaison, though both sides knew he was really a hostage. But James had his own mission, one that relied on the very traits the Xeraxians feared. In the capital city of the Xeraxian Empire, James noticed something fascinating. The lower-ranking Xeraxians, those who actually had to interact with him, began to show less fear over time. Some even displayed curiosity about humans and Earth. It was the leadership, isolated in their perfect environments, who maintained their rigid stance on quarantine. "Your people continue to resist," Symphony of Starlight informed him during one of their mandatory meetings. "Ships have been detected leaving your solar system despite our blockade." James smiled diplomatically. "You cannot cage the human spirit. The more you try to contain us, the more ways we'll find to break free. But it doesn't have to be this way. We could be allies instead of enemies. Allies? With creatures who can survive radiation that would kill us, who can continue fighting with broken bones and damaged organs, who adapt to new environments in mere generations rather than millennia. The risk is too great. But even as the Zeraxian leadership maintained their hardline stance, the first cracks in their unified front began to appear. Reports reached Earth of other species expressing interest in human adaptability. Some even saw potential benefits in an alliance with a species that could survive where others couldn't. The first real test of humanity's new capabilities came 3 months into the quarantine. A Zeraxian patrol detected an unauthorized human vessel attempting to leave the solar system. They ordered it to stop. It didn't. The patrol opened fire, expecting their superior weapons to quickly disable the small human ship. Instead, their energy beams were absorbed by a hull incorporating materials and designs adapted from Earth's most resilient organisms. The human ship's return fire wasn't as elegant as Zeraxian weapons, but it was devastating in its simplicity. Kinetic projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. The patrol's commander watched in horror as these primitive projectiles, barely visible to their sensors, punctured their sophisticated shields and tore through their hull. By the time they called for reinforcements, the human vessel had already disappeared into the darkness between stars. News of the encounter spread quickly through the Zeraxian fleet. For the first time, they faced an enemy that didn't fight according to their rules of warfare. Humans used their environment as a weapon, hiding in radiation belts that would kill Zeraxian crews, accelerating around gas giants in maneuvers that would turn their own crews to paste even in their inertial dampening fields. Back on Earth, Sarah's team celebrated their first success while already working on improvements. They had proved that humanity could stand up to Zeraxian technology. But more importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were evolving. In his quarters on the Zeraxian homeworld, James received the news with carefully hidden satisfaction. During his next meeting with Symphony of Starlight, he noticed something new in the Zeraxians' posture, not just fear, but respect. Perhaps, Symphony of Starlight said slowly, "We need to reevaluate our approach to your species." But before negotiations could begin anew, alarms blared throughout the Zeraxian capital. A new threat had emerged, one that would force both humans and Zeraxians to question everything they thought they knew about survival and adaptation. The quarantine of Earth had become a crucible, forcing humanity to advance centuries in mere months. But it had also set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy in ways neither species could have predicted. As Sarah often said, pressure either breaks things or turns them into diamonds. Humanity had chosen to become diamonds. Turning point. The threat that triggered the alarms in the Zeraxian capital wasn't an attack. It was a discovery. Deep space sensors had detected massive gravitational anomalies moving through the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. The Void Swarm, as they would come to be known, devoured energy and matter alike, leaving only emptiness behind. For the first time in their history, the Zeraxians faced an enemy their technology couldn't overcome. Their perfect shields meant nothing to creatures that existed partially outside normal space. Their precise weapons couldn't target beings that ignored the basic laws of physics. The species that had feared humanity's adaptability now faced extinction because they couldn't adapt fast enough. Dr. Sarah Chen received the data from their own long-range sensors with a mixture of dread and excitement. "This changes everything," she told General Rodriguez during an emergency meeting. "The Void Swarm doesn't care about quarantines or political boundaries. Either we all work together, or we all die separately." On the Zeraxian homeworld, Ambassador James Chen watched the mighty Empire's leadership fracture under pressure. Some wanted to maintain the quarantine of Earth, arguing that humans were still a greater threat than the swarm. Others saw humanity's adaptability as their only hope for survival. Symphony of Starlight made an unprecedented decision. Breaking with traditional protocols, they secretly shared complete technical data about the Void Swarm with James. Your species evolved on a world that should have killed you, they said. Perhaps you can see something we cannot. Sarah and her team worked tirelessly, combining Xeraxian sensor data with human intuition. They noticed something the Xeraxians had missed: patterns in the seemingly random movements of the swarm. Like any predator from Earth, the Void Swarm had hunting behaviors that could be predicted and exploited. "They're not invincible," Sarah announced to the Joint Human-Xeraxian Task Force. "They're just operating on principles we haven't understood before." But humans have a long history of studying predators, becoming predators, and yes, sometimes being prey. We know how this dance works. The first joint human-Xeraxian battle against the Void Swarm took place in the Kuiper Belt. Human ships, built to withstand extreme conditions, acted as bait, drawing the swarm into carefully prepared kill zones. Xeraxian vessels, with their precise weapons recalibrated based on human insights, struck at the exact moments predicted by Sarah's team. For the first time, the Void Swarm suffered losses. The battle wasn't pretty. It didn't fit into any existing military doctrine. It was chaos theory applied to space warfare, using the very unpredictability that Xeraxians feared in humans as a weapon against a greater threat. The victory changed everything. Other alien species that had maintained their distance from both humans and Xeraxians now sought alliances. The quarantine fleet around Earth transformed into a defense force, with human and Xeraxian crews working side by side. Symphony of Starlight, in a formal ceremony broadcast across the galaxy, officially recognized Earth as not a death world, but a crucible, a place where life had been forged into something stronger. "We feared your adaptability," they announced, "but now we understand that the galaxy needs species like yours. The universe is not a safe place, and those who can only survive in safety are doomed." But the war against the Void Swarm was far from over. As Sarah studied more data, she realized something troubling. The swarm was adapting too. Each encounter made them stronger, smarter, more dangerous. It was evolution at a cosmic scale, and the race was on to see who could adapt faster. James, now serving as the official ambassador to the newly formed Galactic Defense Coalition, worked to bridge the growing cultural gaps between species. "Our differences are our strength," he would say in meetings. "Humans can survive where others can't. Xeraxians can calculate what we can only estimate. Other species bring their own unique advantages. United, we are stronger than the sum of our parts." In her lab, Sarah made another breakthrough. The Void Swarm wasn't just adapting, it was learning. And that meant something revolutionary. It could be taught. As she shared her insights with the coalition, a new strategy began to form. Perhaps the solution wasn't to destroy the swarm, but to help it evolve into something less destructive. The third phase of the war would require everything humanity had learned about survival, adaptation, and cooperation. They would need to prove that the traits that had made them feared, their resilience, their adaptability, their ability to thrive in hostile conditions, could save not just humanity, but all sentient life. As the combined fleet prepared for its most ambitious operation yet, Sarah looked out at the stars and smiled. Humans had gone from being quarantined as a threat to leading an alliance of species against cosmic horror. It was, she thought, a very human story, facing extinction, choosing to adapt, and emerging stronger. The universe was about to learn that evolution wasn't just about survival of the fittest, but about finding new ways to thrive together. And nobody knew more about thriving against the odds than the creatures from a little death world called Earth. Alliance and evolution. The revelation that the Void Swarm could learn changed everything. In orbital laboratories scattered throughout the solar system, Dr. Sarah Chen led an unprecedented coalition of scientists from dozens of species. Each brought unique perspectives shaped by their own evolutionary histories, but it was humanity's experience with Earth's most extreme environments that provided the breakthrough they needed. "Look at how life adapts in our deepest oceans," Sarah explained, projecting images of Earth's hydrothermal vents. When we first discovered these ecosystems, we thought nothing could survive there. Now we know they're teeming with life that evolved to turn what should be poison into food. The Void Swarm is doing the same thing on a cosmic scale. The Coalition's first attempts to communicate with the swarm failed spectacularly. Traditional signals meant nothing to beings that existed partially outside normal spacetime. But Sarah's team noticed something fascinating. The swarm responded to patterns of gravitational waves, much like Earth's marine life responded to changes in water pressure. Using this insight, they developed a new form of communication. Modified human ships, built to withstand the intense gravitational forces, began speaking to the swarm using precisely calculated gravitational pulses. The first breakthrough came when a swarm entity actually paused its feeding pattern to investigate the signal. Meanwhile, the alliance itself was evolving. Ambassador James Chen found himself mediating between species that had never worked together before. The Zyrexians, with their perfect precision, struggled to understand the chaos-embracing methods of the Volari, a species of silicon-based beings who thrived in asteroid fields. The crystalline Anxthal couldn't comprehend the organic technology of the fungal Mycerians. Our greatest strength, James told the Coalition Council, isn't our technology or our military might. It's our diversity. Each of our species evolved to survive different challenges. Together, we can survive anything. Symphony of Starlight, now a leading voice for cooperation with humanity, took this philosophy further. They proposed creating hybrid ships, combining the best aspects of each species' technology: human durability, Zyrexian precision, Volari maneuverability, Mycerian organic computing, and Anxthal crystal energy systems, all working in harmony. The first hybrid vessel, the Unity, emerged from the shipyards as something entirely new in the galaxy. It wasn't pretty by any species standards, but it was magnificent in its functionality. Its human-inspired redundant systems meant it could continue operating even with significant damage. Its Zyrexian sensors could detect the slightest gravitational fluctuations. Its Volari-designed engines could execute maneuvers that would tear traditional ships apart. But the Unity's first mission wasn't combat. It was communication. Sarah's team had developed a theory that the Void Swarm wasn't naturally destructive. They believed it was searching for something, consuming worlds and stars in an attempt to find it. Using the Unity's advanced systems, they began broadcasting complex gravitational patterns, trying to understand what the swarm wanted. The response came not in words or images, but in pure mathematical concepts. The swarm was ancient, they discovered, perhaps older than the galaxy itself. It consumed energy not out of malice, but because it was trying to prevent the heat death of the universe. In its own alien way, it was trying to preserve life. This understanding led to an astonishing proposal. The Mycerian scientists, experts in organic technology, suggested that instead of fighting the swarm, they could help it find more efficient ways to achieve its goal. The Anxthal offered their crystal technology, which could store and transfer energy with nearly perfect efficiency. The Zyrexians' precision and humanity's adaptability would be crucial in implementing these solutions. But not everyone embraced this new direction. A faction of Zyrexian hardliners, led by those who had originally advocated for quarantining Earth, saw cooperation with the swarm as an existential risk. They launched a desperate attack on the Unity during a critical communication attempt with the swarm. What followed demonstrated how far the alliance had come. Human crews responded with split-second decisions, protecting the ship's vital systems. Zyrexian tacticians calculated precise defensive maneuvers. Volari pilots executed impossible turns. Mycerian systems adapted and healed damage in real time. Anxthal crystals redistributed power faster than the attackers could disrupt it. The Unity not only survived but maintained its communication link with the swarm. In that moment, as the hybrid crew worked in perfect synchronization to achieve what should have been impossible, the galaxy witnessed something revolutionary: the birth of a truly unified civilization. The hardliners' attack had an unexpected consequence. The swarm, observing through its gravitational senses, recognized the Alliance's commitment to preservation and cooperation, even in the face of internal opposition. It began to alter its behavior, working with the Alliance to find new ways to gather and store energy without destroying inhabited systems. Sarah, watching the data streams in her lab, realized they had achieved something far greater than merely surviving. Humanity had helped forge a new path forward, one that combined the strengths of all species while respecting their differences. The very adaptability that had once made humans feared now made them essential bridges between radically different forms of life. As the Unity continued its mission, now leading a fleet of hybrid ships, the galaxy entered a new era. The question was no longer whether different species could coexist, but how many new ways they could find to thrive together. And at the heart of it all was the lesson humanity had learned on their harsh little world. Adaptation wasn't just about survival. It was about finding new ways to live. Victory and legacy. 5 years after first contact, Earth's night sky looked very different. Where once humanity had gazed up at distant stars in isolation, now ships of various alien designs moved in careful patterns through the solar system. The Void Swarm, once a terror of the galaxy, had transformed into something new. A network of energy-sharing conduits that helped sustain life rather than destroy it. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive orbital facility that combined architecture and technology from over a dozen species. Below her, Earth shone like a blue jewel, no longer quarantined, but serving as a training ground where species from across the galaxy came to learn about adaptation and survival. "They still can't believe we evolved here naturally," she remarked to her brother James, who had just returned from his latest diplomatic mission. "Can you blame them?" James gestured to a group of anxiously scientists examining readings from Earth's core. "We live on a radioactive rock, spinning around a nuclear furnace, with a molten metal core, regular tectonic shifts, and extreme temperature variations. By any reasonable standard, we shouldn't exist." But it was precisely these conditions that had prepared humanity for their role in the galaxy. The Void Swarm Integration Project, led by Sarah's team, demonstrated this daily. Human adaptability proved crucial in understanding and redirecting the swarm's energy-gathering imperatives. Where other species saw only chaos in the swarm's patterns, humans recognized familiar evolutionary behaviors. Symphony of Starlight, now serving as the head of the Galactic Scientific Council, had become one of humanity's strongest advocates. "Your species' greatest gift," they told the gathered assembly, "is not your physical resilience or your technological innovations. It is your ability to see possibilities where others see only obstacles." The Unity fleet, which had grown from a single experimental vessel to an armada of hybrid ships, stood as a testament to this philosophy. Each ship combined the strengths of multiple species, but it was human creativity that often found ways to make seemingly incompatible technologies work together. The greatest test of this new era of cooperation came when long-range sensors detected another void swarm approaching from intergalactic space. But unlike 5 years ago, the galaxy was ready. The Unity fleet, supported by the reformed local swarm, initiated first contact using protocols developed through years of cross-species collaboration. What they discovered changed their understanding of the universe itself. The new swarm carried information from other galaxies, evidence of other civilizations that had faced similar challenges and found their own solutions. The galaxy was not alone in its struggle for survival, and Earth's harsh conditions were not unique in spawning adaptable life. Sarah's team made another breakthrough in understanding the fundamental nature of the swarms. They weren't just seeking energy. They were ancient data storage systems, preserving the knowledge and experiences of countless civilizations across billions of years. The consumption of energy had been a desperate measure to maintain this vast library of cosmic knowledge. With this understanding, the Alliance developed new technologies to help the swarms preserve their data more efficiently. Next, all crystals could store vast amounts of information with minimal energy loss. Mycelian organic computers could process and categorize data in ways traditional systems couldn't imagine. Xeraxian precision ensured perfect data integrity, while human adaptability found new ways to access and interpret the stored knowledge. On Earth, the impact of these discoveries transformed society. Human children now grew up learning alongside young aliens, each sharing their unique perspectives on survival and adaptation. The traits that had once made humanity feared, their resilience, their adaptability, their drive to explore, now made them valued teachers. The quarantine that had been meant to contain humanity had instead unleashed their potential across the galaxy. Earth's classification changed from Deathworld to Crucible World, a place where the extreme conditions forged life into its strongest possible form. James, addressing the Galactic Council on the 5th anniversary of First Contact, summed up humanity's journey. We were born on a world that should have killed us, evolved traits that made us feared, and faced isolation from the galactic community. But these challenges taught us the most important lesson any species can learn, that true strength comes not from dominating others, but from finding ways to help each other survive. Sarah, watching her brother's speech from her lab, smiled as she reviewed the latest data from the intergalactic swarm. Humanity had found its place in the cosmos not as conquerors or outcasts, but as bridges between different forms of life. Their Deathworld origins had prepared them not for war, but for understanding how life could thrive in even the harshest conditions. The stars above Earth now shone with new promise. They were no longer distant points of light, but beacons of possibility, each representing worlds and species that humanity could learn from and teach. The very traits that had made humans feared, their adaptability, their resilience, their ability to survive where others couldn't, had become the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. As night fell over Earth, the combined light of stars and ships created patterns that would have been unimaginable just 5 years ago. Humanity had not just survived their trial by fire. They had helped forge a new way forward for all life in the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, other civilizations were already learning from Earth's example, proving that even in the harshest conditions, life found a way not just to survive, but to thrive together.